The colonial-style house in a quiet Boston suburb was bathed in the soft light of a spring morning. A child's bicycle stood on the stone path that led through the front yard, where cherry trees were in full bloom, to the entrance. "Sophia, hurry up or you'll be late," Emily Harrison called from the kitchen while quickly packing a sandwich into her daughter's lunchbox. With her hair pulled back in a ponytail, she was already dressed in her nurse's scrubs, ready for work. Emily was a veteran nurse who had worked at the local pediatric clinic for more than 10 years. Her gentle smile and accurate judgment had earned her tremendous trust from both the child patients and their parents. "Mom, I can't tie my ribbon," a small voice called from the living room. Emily closed the lunchbox and hurried to the living room. 6-year-old Sophia, wearing a pink dress, had a troubled look on her face as she held her hair ribbon. She was a lovely girl who had inherited Michael's brown eyes and Emily's golden hair. "Come here, princess." Emily knelt down and tied the ribbon while fixing her daughter's hair. "What are you doing at school today?" "Drawing and math." "And I'm having lunch with Jessica," Sophia answered happily. "When is Dad coming home?" Emily smiled. "He said he'll be late tonight. He's helping with the renovations at Grandma and Grandpa's house." Just then, the front door opened and Michael appeared. With his handsome features and sturdy build, he was trusted as the accounting manager at a local construction supply company. He had said he was staying at his parents' house last night, but it seemed he had returned home early this morning. "Good morning, princess." Michael lifted Sophia up and kissed her on the cheek. "Ready for school?" "Yes." Sophia wrapped her arms around her father's neck and hugged him tight. Michael turned to Emily and gave her a light kiss. "Good morning, my love." Emily noticed her husband's tired face. There were circles under his eyes, and his shirt, which was usually perfectly pressed, was wrinkled. "Are you okay? You look really tired." "Yes, Dad and I were ripping up the floors until late last night." "Old houses take more work than you'd imagine," Michael answered with a wry smile. "I'm planning to stop by their place again after work today." Emily felt warmth in her chest at her husband's dedication. Michael's parents, Robert and Martha Harrison, continued to live in the same town after retirement. Their old house needed many repairs, and recently Michael had been spending most of his weekends renovating his parents' home. "Your parents are so lucky to have such a hard-working son." Emily placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. "Is there anything I can help with? I could come along on a weekend when I'm not working." Michael's expression hardened for a moment, but he quickly softened into a smile. "No, it's fine. There's a lot of messy work, and I don't want to involve Sophia. Besides, my parents might be startled if a bunch of people suddenly showed up." "I understand," Emily nodded. "But let me know if you need anything." The three hurriedly finished breakfast and left the house to start their respective days. Michael took Sophia to school, and Emily headed to the clinic. Throughout the day, while busy with pediatric patients, Emily occasionally remembered her husband's tired appearance. While she felt proud of him working so hard for his parents, she was slightly concerned about the recent changes in Michael. On her way home, Emily had a sudden thought. It had been months since she'd seen Michael's parents. If she surprised them with a visit on the weekend, she could see how the renovations were coming along and maybe find a way to help. Plus, Sophia would be happy to see her grandparents. "Sophia, how about we visit Grandma and Grandpa this weekend? We can surprise Dad," Emily suggested to her daughter during dinner. "Yay! Dad will be so surprised." Sophia jumped with joy. Emily nodded with a smile. She was moved by how hard Michael was working for his parents and wanted to help if she could. She also wanted to express her gratitude to her in-laws. That night, Emily began planning their weekend trip. They would bring some baked goods with Sophia. As the weekend approached, Emily developed her surprise plan to visit Michael's parents in more detail. Friday night, when Michael came home, he was standing at the entrance looking more tired than usual. "Are you okay?" Emily peered at her husband's face. "You look really worn out." Michael smiled weakly. "Yes, the renovation is tougher than I thought. Today I was replacing all the plumbing in the basement." He showed her his hands. They were red, swollen, and had several small cuts. They looked quite rough, even though he should have been wearing work gloves. "Are you getting enough rest?" Emily asked worriedly. "Aren't you pushing yourself too hard?" "Don't worry," Michael answered lightly. "I can do it for my parents. I want them to live comfortably as they get older." He entered the living room and sank deeply into the couch. Emily brought him a beer from the kitchen and handed it to him. Michael showed a grateful expression, took a sip, and said, "I'm planning to go there first thing tomorrow. I probably won't be back until evening." Emily casually asked, "By the way, we haven't heard from Robert and Martha lately. Are they doing well?" Michael's expression stiffened for a moment. "Yes, they're both fine. It's just that the house is a mess with the renovation, so they're not really in the mood to talk to people. Especially Mom." "I understand. But could you tell them I'd love to see them on Mother's Day?" "Of course," Michael answered quickly. "I'll let them know." The next morning, Michael left the house early. He was wearing work clothes that Emily didn't recognize, rather than his usual casual clothes. That afternoon, while Emily was shopping at the supermarket, she ran into Betty Johnson, an old friend of Michael's parents. "Emily. It's been a while. How have you been?" Betty's friendly voice echoed down the aisle. "We're all doing well. How about you, Betty?" "I'm fine too. By the way, I haven't seen Robert and Martha lately. Are they okay?" Betty asked with a somewhat worried expression. Emily was surprised for a moment. "Yes, they're fine. Michael is helping with their house renovation. It seems a bit challenging." "Oh, that's good," Betty showed a look of relief. "I was worried because they didn't come to church last week. They never used to miss a week, but lately I haven't seen them." According to Michael, they're having a hard time with the renovation. Emily smiled, but internally she felt something was off. Michael's parents were devout Christians who rarely missed Sunday service. When she returned home, Emily decided to call her in-laws. However, no one answered after several attempts. She left a message on their voicemail, asking them to call her back. That night, when Michael came home, Emily told him about trying to call his parents. No one answered. "I got a little worried." Michael shrugged. "Oh, the phone is broken. I ordered a new one, but it hasn't arrived yet." "I see," Emily said, looking a bit anxious. "Betty said she hasn't seen them at church." "They're tired from the renovation," Michael replied, seeming slightly irritated. "Besides, Dad has hurt his back recently, and Mom's taking care of him. There's no need to worry." Emily tried to find comfort in her husband's words, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. The weekend surprise visit seemed increasingly important. She felt she needed to see for herself how his parents were doing. As the week progressed, Michael's behavior became increasingly strange. Sometimes he would come home late at night. When asked, he explained, "I had some detailed work left and wanted to finish it." Also, there were dirt and paint stains on the back seat of his car. Once, as Emily was doing laundry, a receipt fell out of Michael's jeans pocket. It was from a home center in the neighboring town, quite far from his parents' house. "This receipt is from the Milton Home Center," Emily mentioned during dinner. "You went quite far." Michael froze for a moment. I needed a special part. Couldn't find it nearby." Questions remained, but Emily tried to trust her husband. It was clear he was working hard for his parents. Still, she was worried about the lack of communication from her in-laws. Thursday night, when Michael came home late, Emily asked directly, "Are they really okay? I'm getting worried because we haven't heard from them at all lately." Michael looked at Emily with tired eyes and placed his hand on her shoulder. "They're really fine. Both of them are well. It's just that the renovation is more difficult than expected, and everyone's tired. Things should settle down by the weekend, and then we'll be able to contact them." Emily took a deep breath. "Okay. But something feels off. They always used to call." "Emily," Michael said in a gentle but somewhat firm tone. "Trust me. They're both fine. Things are just a bit chaotic right now." Emily decided to accept her husband's words. After all, Michael should know his parents best. And she told herself that her worries were probably unfounded. Everything would become clear over the weekend. Friday night, Michael again said, "I'll be at my parents' all day tomorrow," before going to bed early. Emily made final preparations for her plan with Sophia the next day. They would leave early in the morning and arrive at Michael's parents' house before noon. Saturday morning dawned with a crystal-clear blue sky. Emily and Sophia quickly ate breakfast and set out for Michael's parents' house. In the car, Sophia excitedly looked out the window. "Will Grandma and Grandpa be surprised?" Sophia asked, fiddling with her yellow hair clip. "Of course," Emily smiled. "Especially Grandma, she'll love seeing you in that lovely dress." The car entered a quiet residential area in the suburbs. Michael's parents' house was a colonial-style home over 50 years old, surrounded by stately trees. As they turned the corner and the house came into view, Emily suddenly hit the brakes. "Mom, what's wrong?" Sophia asked curiously. Emily was speechless. There was a red and white, "For sale," sign standing in the front yard of Michael's parents' house. The house was on the market. "Wait here a moment," Emily said in a trembling voice. "Mom's going to check something." She parked the car on the shoulder and approached the sign. It was definitely Michael's parents' house. The sign displayed the name of a local real estate company and the words, "Newly renovated colonial." Various questions swirled in Emily's mind. Why hadn't Michael told her the house was for sale? Where had his parents moved to? And most importantly, why had he hidden such a big decision from her? Emily walked around the house and peered through the windows. Most of the furniture was gone, and some rooms showed signs of renovation: new flooring, repainted walls, new kitchen counters. But this didn't seem like the renovation, for his parents, that Michael had described. This was clearly remodeling to sell the house. With trembling hands, she took out her cell phone and called Michael. But his phone switched to voicemail. Next, she called her in-laws' cell phones, but these played the message, "This number is currently not in use." Filled with confusion and anxiety, Emily returned to the car. Sophia was reading a picture book in the back seat. "Aren't Grandma and Grandpa here?" Sophia asked. "It doesn't look like it, honey," Emily answered, trying to hide her distress. "And the house looks a bit different. Where's Dad? Isn't he here either?" "It doesn't seem like it. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer." Sophia thought for a moment, then suddenly said in a bright voice, "Mom, I know where Dad might be." Emily looked at her daughter in surprise. "What do you mean?" "There's a place I went to with Dad before, when I was sleeping in the car." Sophia lowered her voice a little. "But Dad told me not to tell anyone." Anxiety spread through Emily's chest. "What kind of place was it, Sophia?" "A big old building. It was really dark inside, and Dad was carrying something the whole time." "Something like a shovel," Sophia spoke, seeming a bit scared. "Dad didn't notice I was awake. I closed my eyes right away and pretended to be asleep." The blood drained from Emily's face. What did this mean? What had Michael been doing? And where were her in-laws? "Do you think you could find that place? Do you remember it?" Emily asked, trying to appear as calm as possible. Sophia thought for a moment and then nodded. "Yes, I remember. It's a big red building, and Dad was telling someone on the phone it used to be a factory. Could it be the old mill district in the next town?" Emily said aloud. Emily and Michael had passed through that area a few years ago. It was a place where textile factories once stood, and now many buildings were abandoned. "I think that's it," Sophia nodded. "Should we go?" Emily took a deep breath. This was a development she hadn't anticipated at all. For a moment, she considered simply going home and waiting for Michael to return. But she needed an explanation for why her in-laws' house was for sale and why they had suddenly become unreachable. And Sophia's mention of a big old building and a shovel gave her an ominous feeling. "Let's go take a look, Sophia," Emily made up her mind. "But if anything seems strange, we'll leave right away." The car headed to the neighboring town. In Emily's mind, various scenarios appeared and disappeared. Even if Michael was involved in selling his in-laws' house, there had to be a rational explanation. Perhaps his parents wanted to move to a smaller house after retirement, and Michael was helping with the arrangements. Yes, that must be it. She didn't want to consider other possibilities. As they approached the old mill district, the landscape gradually changed from neat suburban residential areas to abandoned industrial zones. Among buildings with rusty steel frames and broken windows, a large red brick building came into view. "That's it, Mom," Sophia pointed out the window. "That red building." Emily parked the car on the shoulder and observed the building. The former textile factory was now in ruins. However, there was a small parking space on the side, where Michael's truck was parked. Emily's heart began to pound rapidly. Michael was definitely here. But why? Why was he in a place like this when he had said he was renovating his parents' house? "Sophia, stay in the car," Emily said with determination. "Mom's going to take a quick look. I'll lock the doors, so don't open them for anyone, okay? Not even for Dad?" Sophia asked anxiously. Emily hesitated for a moment. "If Dad comes, tell me. But don't open the door." Sophia quietly nodded. Emily got out of the car and headed toward the old factory building. As she approached the building, her anxiety increased. There was a small door on the side of the factory, slightly ajar. Emily quietly approached and peered inside. The building was dimly lit, with shadows of dust-covered and time-worn machinery cast on the walls. She could hear sounds coming from the back. Emily took a deep breath and entered as quietly as possible. At her feet, the old factory floor was exposed, with metal fragments and wood splinters scattered about. As she moved toward the sound, she saw light on the other side of a large space. As she cautiously approached, she realized the light source was a flashlight. And illuminated by that light was Michael, digging a hole in the ground. He was waist-deep in the hole, turning over soil with a shovel. Next to the hole lay two long objects wrapped in large plastic sheets. Emily felt her breath catch. Her whole body began to tremble with fear and confusion. The shape of the objects clearly resembled human bodies. She instinctively stepped back, accidentally stepping on a piece of metal. The sound of it clattering broke the silence. Michael quickly looked up. "Who's there?" His voice wasn't the gentle voice of the Michael she knew. It was sharp and cold. Emily held her breath and hid in the shadow of an old machine. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, and cold sweat ran down her back. Michael stood with the shovel in hand, cautiously looking around. "Probably just a cat or something," Michael muttered to himself and returned to his work. Emily moved to a position where she could see better. What she saw from there confirmed her worst fears. Michael had begun lowering one of the plastic-wrapped objects into the hole. As the sheet opened slightly, she could see Robert's distinctive silver pocket watch. He always wore it. Her stomach nearly turned with fear and disgust. Emily put her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. Only one conclusion formed in her mind: Michael had killed his parents and was trying to hide the evidence. As quietly as possible, Emily began retracing her steps. She had to be careful with her footing, but fear made her body difficult to control. She needed to get out of this place as quickly as possible, take Sophia, and flee. And she needed to report this to the police. Somehow making it out of the building, Emily hurried to the parked car. Sophia was waiting for her in the back seat. "Mom, did you find Dad?" Sophia asked innocently. Emily tried to appear calm. "Not yet, but we need to go home now. Mom's not feeling well." "What about Dad?" "Dad will join us later." Emily gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands and started the engine. "Make sure your seatbelt is fastened tight." The car left the old mill district and reached the main road. After putting enough distance between them, Emily pulled over to the shoulder and took out her cell phone with shaking hands. 911, emergency. "How can I help you?" The operator's calm voice responded. My husband." Emily began, fighting back tears. "I think he killed his parents. I saw him burying them at an old factory." "Ma'am, please try to stay calm. Can you tell me your current location?" Emily provided her location and explained in detail about Michael's behavior and the factory's location. The operator assured her that police would be dispatched immediately and instructed her to remain in a safe place. After ending the call, Emily looked at Sophia in the rearview mirror. Her daughter was looking out the window and didn't seem to understand the situation. Emily was relieved, but she was forced to make a decision about what to do next. "Sophia, Mom just talked to the police," Emily said gently. "We need to wait here until they arrive." "Did something happen to Dad?" Sophia's voice was tinged with anxiety. Emily took a deep breath. Dad seems to be having some problems. The police will help him." To avoid further questions, Emily began playing Sophia's favorite song. She herself couldn't calm her trembling hands. Questions kept appearing and disappearing in her mind. Why on earth had Michael done this? Where had her husband gone wrong? About 15 minutes later, the sound of police sirens could be heard. 2 patrol cars approached and parked next to her car. The officers got out and approached Emily. "Mrs. Harrison?" one officer asked. "We received your report. Can you tell us more about what happened?" Emily explained everything again. As she spoke, the other officer was requesting backup on the radio. They advised Emily to move to a safe location with Sophia. "We'll investigate that factory. Could you and your daughter wait at the police station?" the officer said. "We'll take your formal statement there." Emily agreed and followed the patrol car to the police station. All the while, her heart was full of fear and sadness. How could her beloved husband have committed such a horrible crime without her knowing? And her in-laws, tears welled up just thinking about it. Arriving at the police station, she and Sophia were led to a private room. A kind female officer brought Sophia drinks and snacks and arranged for her to play in another room. Emily gave a detailed statement, telling them everything about Michael's and her in-laws' recent behavior. "Did your husband have any debts or financial problems?" the detective asked. "No, not that I know of," Emily answered. "He had a stable income as an accounting manager. We lived modestly, but we were never in financial trouble." "Did he ever mention anything about his parents' house? About property or inheritance?" Emily thought for a moment. "Not specifically. But once." She hesitated for a moment. "Once, Michael talked about his parents' insurance. He said we needed to prepare for the worst since they were getting older." The detectives exchanged glances. "I understand. Please let us know if you think of anything else that concerns you." At that moment, the door opened, and the officer from earlier entered. He approached the detective and whispered something. The detective's expression hardened. "Mrs. Harrison," the detective began, carefully choosing his words. "2 bodies have been discovered at the scene. At this point, we can't be certain, but they are likely to be your father-in-law and mother-in-law." Tears flowed from Emily's eyes. "And Michael? He's been arrested. He didn't resist and is now in custody," the detective continued. "We're currently taking his confession." That night, Emily and Sophia stayed at a safe accommodation arranged by the police. The next morning, a detective visited Emily and explained Michael's confession. "Mrs. Harrison, I'm sorry to say that your husband has admitted to the murder of his parents and insurance fraud," the detective spoke quietly. According to him, he was about to be caught for embezzling at his company and needed money to pay it back. He planned to use his parents' life insurance and the proceeds from selling the house to cover it up. Emily covered her face with both hands. Why didn't he talk to me? Unfortunately, the crime was premeditated. He poisoned his parents and concealed the evidence under the guise of renovating the house, the detective continued painfully. It seems he was buying time by using his parents' cell phones to send messages to people around them saying they were on a trip. Despite her grief, Emily tried to stay strong for Sophia's sake. A few days later, Michael's initial hearing was held, and Emily took the witness stand. In court, Michael sat without changing his expression. The loving husband she had known was no longer there. The trial continued for several months, and Michael was found guilty of first-degree murder, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. The judge sentenced him to life in prison. A year after the tragedy, Emily and Sophia had begun a new life in a different town. Their new house was small, but it was enough for them. Emily had started working at another pediatric clinic, and Sophia was attending a new school. One evening, as Sophia was doing her homework at the kitchen table, she suddenly asked Emily, "Mom, isn't Dad ever coming back?" Emily took a deep breath. "No, honey. Dad will be in prison for a long time. Grandma and Grandpa are in heaven, right?" "Yes, they are." Sophia quietly put down her pencil. "We're a real family, aren't we?" Emily looked at her daughter in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Jones told me that family is about trust and love, not just blood," Sophia continued with a serious face. "We trust each other, right? So we're a real family." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She sat next to her daughter and hugged her small body. "That's right, Sophia. We're a strong family, just the two of us." Outside the window, the sunset was painting the town's rooftops red, as if promising that a new day would bring new hope. In a distant prison cell, Michael Harrison sat facing the wall. In his hands, he held the last photo of his family. As he stared at the picture, he contemplated the magnitude of what he had lost. The weight of the real treasure he had lost for material desires.